What's up, everybody? Good morning, good afternoon, whenever you find yourself tuning in. This is your daily meditation for Thursday, December 17th, 2020. Glad that you're here. Welcome back. This is the First Presbyterian Church YouTube channel. I'm Bobby Harding, and before we dive into the meditation for today, I've got a few announcements for you because things been happening around here. First of all, as I'm sure some or most of you already know, because of the rising number of active COVID cases in our county, our church has decided to stop in-person worship for the time being. This was part of the program that we set up. And how are we going to decide when to stop? What are we going to do? This was one of those ways. If the active cases get to be to a certain point, then we'll do that. And that's what's happened. So this coming Sunday, we will be worshiping at 10 a.m. live on YouTube as we've been doing, and then you can watch that worship service later. It'll still be on YouTube, but we encourage you to join us there on YouTube for that live streaming worship and or watch it on YouTube later. Not easy times, y'all, but it is what it is, and we're doing what we think is best and safest for us and for our neighbors and friends. Okay. That being said, if you're watching this video, you're already hip with YouTube, you know what's going on. Help us out. If you know someone who might be interested to know that about our worship plan for Sunday, and they don't really tune into YouTube much, or they're not as technologically hip as you are, help us out by calling them and letting them know what's going on at the church. That would be very helpful to us as we try to get the word out. Also, as part of our church's plan, the offices are closed. So all of church staff will be working remotely for the time being. We'll be checking messages, of course, and emails and so forth. So if you need to reach us, just do it like you always do. But there will not be church staff in the office, if you catch my drift. And then finally, Christmas Eve. I know we're all wondering what's going to happen with Christmas Eve. It's a week from today, right? Just stay tuned, okay? We are keeping an eye on all the numbers, and I say we, I'm not really doing that. There are people much smarter than me who are crunching numbers and keeping an eye on things. We will let you know as soon as we can what the plan is for Christmas Eve. So stay tuned. Early next week, as soon as we can, we'll tell you, we'll announce what we're planning to do. We are holding out hope for Christmas Eve worship together. And I know that you all are aware of that, but that's what's up. Okay, enough of the business. Let's get to the daily meditation for the 17th. This text I'm going to read you some verses out of Mark chapter 3. Mark chapter 3. Mark's gospel, he just jumps right into the action. So we're early in the gospel, but Jesus is already active in ministry at this point. As I read these verses, 6 verses, Mark 3, verses 1 through 6, listen carefully to them as I read. And what I would like to invite you to do, no matter where you are as you watch this, is enter the scene as I read it. Imagine that you are following Jesus into this scene. What are you noticing? What are you feeling as the scene unfolds? Imagine yourself staying close to Jesus in these verses and just paying attention to what you're feeling. And that's the prompt for the reading. Okay, are you ready? Here we go. This is Mark 3, verses 1 through 6. Another time, Jesus went into the synagogue and noticed a man with a shriveled hand was there. Some of them were looking for a reason to accuse Jesus, so they watched him closely to see if he would heal him on the Sabbath. Jesus said to the man with the shriveled hand, "Stand up in front of everyone." Then Jesus asked them, "Which of these is lawful to do on the Sabbath? To do good or to do evil? Is it lawful to save life on the Sabbath or to destroy it?" But they remained silent and said nothing. Jesus looked around at them in anger and was deeply saddened by their stubborn hearts. He said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." The man stretched it out, and his hand was completely restored. Then the Pharisees went out and began to plot with the Herodians on how they might kill Jesus. I wish we could have a conversation about this. What you were feeling, what you noticed as you entered the scene with Jesus and stayed close to Jesus, imagining that you're behind him as he enters into the synagogue. It's a fun way to read Scripture, especially these stories about Jesus who's always moving and grooving and working and talking and teaching. I'm going to share with you a couple things that I noticed, but really this meditation was meant for you to spend time in that and to notice things for yourself. Remember, at the very end of chapter 2, like the verse right before this, the 2 verses leading into this, are those famous words from Jesus when he says, essentially, the Sabbath was intended to be a gift for people, not the other way around, right? It's not about people following the rules of the Sabbath. It's about people receiving the gift of the Sabbath. And then he says, and the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. And then we have this scene in Mark chapter 3 that happens right after that. So the Sabbath is kind of what the theme that's happening in Mark's gospel at this moment. What strikes me is the mindfulness of Christ as he comes into the synagogue, knowing that he's being followed by people who are plotting, who would love to see him dead. Jesus is, even in the midst of that tension, is mindful and notices the man with the withered hand. Withered, it's so strange. I don't know, wrinkled up, shriveled hand. Jesus notices that. They don't notice that. They're fixed on Jesus in a bad way. They're watching Jesus, not noticing, not mindful at all about their surroundings, just wanting to trap Jesus so they can get rid of him. That's one thing that stands out to me. Jesus' mindfulness, always so mindful, no matter what else is going on around him. The feeling that I had, the way that I imagined that moment when Jesus says, "Hey, talk to me about the Sabbath. Do you think that the Sabbath was meant to bring life and give life, or to destroy it? As you read the law, do you think it's lawful for me to bring life on the Sabbath or to destroy it? Which is lawful, okay?" And it says that the Pharisees, Mark says the Pharisees said nothing. They kept their mouths shut. I imagine the disciples and those who are following Jesus are drop-jawed at those words from Christ. But the Pharisees and everybody else, they're not drop-jawed. Their teeth clenched at those words. So that's another thing. And so it raises the question for me, for you. At the radical way of Christ, do we spend more time drop-jawed or teeth clenched? And which is better? That's another thing I notice. I'm also struck by Jesus' anger and sadness. And I think that a lot of us can relate to these feelings, of both angry and sad. Jesus is super angry. There's a great word for that I'm not going to say on YouTube. He is angry and also deeply saddened. And with tears in his eyes, he heals this man's hand. And they run, and the other guys run off to try to plot how to kill him. Jesus knew the law. Jesus knew what the law said. But Jesus interpreted that law differently than the Pharisees did, right? It's almost as if for Jesus, the law, put that down, the law was meant to set God's people in a trajectory, in a way, So if the law was to be read literally, then yeah, they had a right to have Jesus killed. But Jesus is saying you're interpreting the law wrong, right? Instead, Jesus knew the law, knew the trajectory of that law, if that makes sense, the spirit of that law, the life of that law, God's heart within that law, And Jesus, knowing the risks, decided to stay within the flow of God's intention, within the flow of God's love, remain faithful to God's, I keep thinking trajectory for that law. Aware of the risks, he stays faithful to what he knows the law is about. And I think it's so easy for us as Christians to get bogged down and tangled up over and over again in the idea that the Christian life is about following rules. I think Dallas Willard is the one who coined that phrase, the gospel of sin management, as if the gospel is about following rules, right? But we know that's not what it is. It's about what's been done for us, not about what we do. The life of I like to say this a lot, the evidence of a life that's being led by the Spirit, the evidence of a life that's full of the Spirit and being led by the Spirit is not in the sin that person can avoid or manages to avoid, or the rules they're able to follow, or how good they are at following the rules. That's not the evidence of a life led by the Spirit. The evidence of a life led by the Spirit is the fruit that is produced in that person's life. Love and joy and all these things that pour out of that person. That's evidence of a life led by the Spirit. I know lots of people who don't seem to follow the rules very well, but also at the same time seem to have love always just pouring out of them into the people around them in ways that are almost tangible and contagious and amazing, So I hope that's an encouragement to you. I kind of went on a little long here. Hope you don't mind, but if you're still here, that means a lot. Folks, we love you. Hang in there. Stay tuned for more. Grace and peace. We'll see you next time.